Let's get right into it. Number 12. Gong Farmer. Every day started the same, down in a hole full of someone else's mess. This was the work. Scraping out old cesspools by hand, breath thick with stink, hands caked in filth. No tools worth naming, just a bucket and blunt courage. Waste piled high where families had emptied their chambers night after night. What you pulled up wasn't trash, it counted as yield. Poop measured in buckets, sold off later for tanning or fertilizer. Sleep came light, dreams sour. Dawn brought it all again. Down in the dark, waste piled high where sewers should have been. Night after night, when the pit ran full, they sent someone below, someone like you. Ropes creaked as you dropped into air that burned the throat. Slime swallowed boots, then legs. Buckets weighted, heavy and slick once filled. A single gasp too deep meant blackness without warning. Step off balance? Then the muck claimed another soul. Your name forgotten by morning. Not built for comfort, this work lived where revulsion met necessity. Bodies react badly to human waste, smart biology. Really, but old towns still had filth that demanded removal. Someone always ended up doing what everyone else refused. The task landed on those with nothing left. Broke people, forgotten ones, those already shoved aside. Wages were high by comparison, a clue in itself. High pay here acted like a confession. This is awful enough that coins must cover our guilt. Still, even while handling vital sanitation tasks, Gong farmers faced rejection. Society kept its distance, no handshakes, no conversations, hardly a glance. Preventing sickness across whole streets earned zero invitations through anyone's front door. Here lies the bitter twist. Those stopping epidemics got handled as if they carried contagion by breath alone. Your payment for holding things together? Staying unseen, always smelling faintly of falling short. Number 11. Sin Eater. Bread waits beside the casket, not flowers. A man stands close, silent, ready. He takes more than crumbs. He carries away what the body left behind. Sin sticks like dust on skin, unseen but heavy. His mouth opens for rye, not prayer. Each bite pulls guilt into him. The departed float lighter now, unchained. What he swallows never leaves. Hunger follows him longer than grief. A quiet practice, yet it left a chill. Upon the dead person's chest, food would rest, often bread or something baked. Eating it came next, along with murmured phrases, each bite pulling their wrongs inside you. Deceits, stolen moments, dark urges, choices made easier by bending truth. All swallowed down like weight in the soul. Once done, folks saw the body as purified. But you carried something unseen now, a quiet hum beneath your skin. Fear of not knowing hits harder than reason ever could. That unknown future? It gnaws at you. To handle it, people hand off their unease to something outside themselves. Blame shifts without warning. What sits underneath feels like borrowed weight. Some thought guilt might wash off, as if stained cloth held all wrongdoing. Passing it along could soften what waits beyond the last breath. Out in the cold, just past where houses stopped standing, lived people nobody named at dinner. Needed, yet kept at a distance, after all. Holding sins like sacks of wet ash makes closeness unwise. Payment came in crusts or tarnished pennies. A quiet irony written into every bite. A soul handed over, one meal bought. Here's what cuts deep. It's the way feelings add up. Relief settled into homes. A sense of safety spread through town. Yet you left carrying more weight, not physical but built from silent blame. Over time, you turned into someone who holds the shame others chose to drop. You carried everyone's pain like a therapist would, yet got treated as the one to blame when things went wrong, almost like holding on to what others discarded without saying thanks. Staying isolated was the reward handed back. Number 10. Resurrectionist. Midnight. You're staring at the ceiling. Thinking tomorrow means sneaking into cemeteries before dawn. These men weren't thieves who broke laws for greed. They lifted coffins because doctors needed cadavers. Think of it as grim logistics, not horror stories. Schools paid cash, families mourned underground, and someone had to dig when soil was still soft. They didn't wear masks, just muddy boots and silence. Demand shaped choices more than guilt ever did. This is how it was. Medical folks required corpses to learn about human structure, yet strict rules plus religious beliefs blocked every path. Science responded by finding a workaround. It landed on people like you. Nighttime became your time. Quiet digging happened fast, ahead of rot. Taking valuables wasn't the point. The coffin stayed untouched. What moved was the corpse itself, just not back. That job survived mostly because people enjoy results more than they tolerate messy beginnings. Better cures drew wide approval. The grim steps behind them, best left unexamined. Digging up bodies slipped under ethical radar that way. Relatives recoiled in shock when graves turned up empty. Yet those same communities kept cheering every new breakthrough in hospitals. Every day felt heavy. Crowds shouting, dogs barking. Metal boxes bolted over dead people's resting places. Mistakes brought pain or worse. Still, the work filled pockets, since it lived just beyond what rules allow and nerves can take. Pay grows when work brushes against lines most won't cross. The sharper the line, the fatter the reward. Strange how it worked. You stood between life and death, handing over the forgotten so others could live longer. Doctors needed what you provided, yet looked away when taking it. The future came at a cost they preferred not to name. For all intents, your job was delivering bodies like a ghost. No one saw you come or go. Number 9. Rat catcher. Floor suddenly moving makes most people jump. Picture doing it on purpose every day. These jobs meant wading through grime, sickness, fear, sharp little jaws everywhere. Towns back then held piles of rotting waste like giant gutters. Workers stepped into that mess just to keep numbers down. Not many liked rats. These creatures brought sickness wherever they went. Food stores vanished because of them. Their numbers grew fast, too fast. Catching them meant setting traps or using poison. Sometimes you just had to scare them off yourself. Hands did most of the work. Protection for hands? Not always there. Staying calm while doing this? That part never came with the task. Rats set off deep unease in ways hard to ignore, darting without warning. Tied to rot, carrying a sharp awareness they should not belong. Many pull back the moment one appears. Yet each day you walked straight into that reflex, facing what most flee. Even when doing their duty, rat catchers took the fall for plagues beyond their reach. Spread illness? Must mean you failed somehow. That's how blaming works, simple, sharp, unfair. Powerless folks hunt for a face to point at, especially one smeared with grime. Rats would have overrun towns if not for those who took them on. From the shadows you worked, using nothing but sticks and traps, while others stood back, waiting to see what happened. You existed like a quiet shield, doing your job without praise. Only noticed when things broke. Number 8. Toad tester. Out of nowhere in time, a person stared at palace life and got an idea. Wait, they might have said. What if we check whether dinner is deadly? You're now that job. Tasting meals first that fell to the court toad. Not because frogs were involved, but because survival mattered more than status. Every bite could be your last. Someone had to take the risk so others wouldn't. Fear of poison ran deep. Rulers faced danger with every dish, which is why they passed the threat to others who could be lost without consequence. A taste first, then silence while waiting. Would sickness rise? Survival meant food fit to eat. Death? That cleared doubts just the same. This role taps into a blind spot in human thinking. Leaders believed toxins lurked around every corner, yet stayed oddly sure it would not touch them. Your presence let them sense safety while avoiding real risk. Much like those who prefer seeing daring stunts online rather than trying one. What feels unsettling isn't just the poison, it's the wait. Certain toxins take their time. You could have dinner, think nothing of it, only later question whether your growing dizziness comes from treachery or too little water. Without warning, your flesh turns into unmonitored research, missing any baseline to compare against. You existed like a shield made of flesh. When disaster loomed, it struck you before anyone else. Silence followed when danger passed. Your role vanished from memory just as fast. Your task, more or less, was to vanish quietly so a powerful person could stay untouched by mess. Number 7. Corpse washer. Picture doing this job back when germs made no sense, clean hands were a maybe, and touching corpses just came with the workday. Long before rubber gloves showed up, or warnings about contamination, people scrubbed bodies, put clothes on them, dealt with decay without shields. This had nothing to do with ritual. It served a real purpose. Washing bodies helped delay rot and made farewells bearable. The task meant cleaning flesh that could no longer feel heat or cold, handling leaks the corpse hadn't finished shedding, sitting with thoughts of breath now gone. Your body froze each time you saw one. Stillness like that messes with perception, too much like life, yet completely empty. Not a single breath. Never any reaction. The silence builds pressure behind your eyes. Waiting becomes unbearable, even when there is nothing left to wait for. Normal folks walk away fast. You stayed longer than most. Even with danger around, those who washed bodies got little pay, little thanks. Since death felt tainted in spirit, the role came with shame. You mattered when someone died, yet stayed unseen the rest of time. That pattern shows up again and again. Vital tasks, pushed to the side lives. Strange how getting close to death so often made some people feel less. It wasn't coldness. Feeling too much each time wears down a person. The mind learns to shift what shocks into something ordinary. Most folks dealt with sorrow. You handled what was left behind. People liked it better when you stayed out of sight. Number 6. Night soil collector. Far from pleasant, this job stretched beyond normal hours. Under cover of dark, workers moved through crowded towns collecting night soil from indoor buckets. They hauled loads long before sunrise, making filth vanish just in time for morning. The city breathed easier once messes disappeared without a trace. Folks passed you pails full of their private waste. Nothing hidden, nothing clean, just raw exposure to how guts really work. Down tight alleys you walked, balancing the load, dodging stumbles, avoiding fumes with every step. Working there made people act like you weren't even present. Your presence became something others chose not to see. Looking your way might force them to notice the tray in your hands. That sight, unwelcome first thing in the morning. Their instinct was to pull back, repelled without thinking. Evening after evening, those who gathered human waste kept cities healthier. Without their work, farms would lack vital nutrients for crops. This job tied urban life to the land in quiet ways. Long before modern systems, these workers handled what others ignored. Even so, it sat lowest on the social ladder. Being linked to grime meant others saw you as morally stained. People act like bodily mess always shows inner weakness. You existed as a quiet nudge toward what bodies are, something most preferred to ignore. Number 5. Fuller. Odd as it seems, this was everyday practice. Fullers treated wool to make it cleaner and heavier. Instead of soap, they used pee either from people or animals to pull grease and grime out. The fresher the liquid, the better it performed, so staying close to the source made sense. Walking up, someone left their pee in big outdoor jars. Stepping into cloth soaked in that liquid, you'd crush it underfoot, feeling the material loosen as sharp air burned your throat. Not by mistake did this happen. Nobody called it science back then. Still, it made life worse without warning. Folks got used to it because they had to. Once something proves useful, doubt fades away. Keeping garments fresh was essential. That job fell to pee. Nothing more to say. But your nose reminded you every single time. Folks who cleaned cloth mattered deeply, still faced scorn and isolation. Once more, comfort came hand in hand with cold shoulders. Neat garments earned smiles. Pain behind them faded from view. Fumes clung to your clothes long before labs wore white coats. Number 4. Leech Collector. Barefoot in murky water, trousers hitched high. Worms cling to skin on purpose. Not driven by research, not even wonder. Motive? Cash. These gatherers handed live leeches to physicians. Bloodletting relied on them, meant to cure headaches, mood swings, almost any flaw you could name. Wading through thick, muddy water took most of the morning. Leeches clung fast, feeding slowly until bloated, round little sacks clinging to skin. When they'd had enough, hands pulled each one free, dropping them into jars for later selling. Blood trickled long after each bite. Anticoagulant from the creatures kept wounds open. By sunset, exhaustion wasn't the only weight. Fluid seeped out with every step. Something inside had to shift just to show up each day. Creatures that latch on, suck, then stay put. This triggers something old in us. It feels like surrendering your body, maybe catching something worse later. That reaction makes sense, honestly. Still, doctors kept asking for leeches. You ended up standing where dread meets odd treatments. Strange how it played out. Doctors thought they fixed things by taking blood away, yet there you were, drained bit by bit, just doing your job. They called it treatment. You lived it as slow loss. Your role? Just a starter course. Someone else got to play doctor while you sat on the menu. Number 3. Human alarm clock. Back when alarms cost too much, folks paid others to rouse them at dawn. Out before sunrise, nudging panes with a rod or shooting hard peas via tube till movement came. Show late, another worker missed their chance. Easy to mess up, tough if you did. This might seem small until time comes into play. While others rested, your job kept going. Wet weather, low temperatures, pitch-black mornings. None of it made a difference. Not just one soul depended on you. Whole blocks did, packed with lives out of sync and moods that shifted like wind. Waking up early every day started to weigh on the mind. Someone else's panic about missing the alarm landed right at your door. Late? That rings a bell. It wasn't them, it was always you. Funny how folks cling to that. Relief tastes sweeter when someone else carries the guilt. Becoming woven into how people rested felt oddly close, like knowing a secret about their nights. Some stirred at the slightest sound. Others barely noticed you were there, while a few snapped awake full of irritation. When better timepieces arrived, your role vanished without warning. You were there simply because people struggled to rely on their own judgment. Soon enough, machines stepped in quietly and made you vanish. Suddenly, trust shifted from minds to code, leaving little trace of your role. Number 2. Execution assistant. A hand needed to step in. Ropes got tied by someone nearby. Others kept still under pressure. The mess came later, handled quietly. These helpers stood beside the act, close enough to sense it all, though never given the final say. Strange how the mind copes when duty gets dark. Breaking work into steps makes horror seem routine. Not someone who took a life, just a person following orders. That separation matters more than you'd think. Keeps guilt at arm's length. Close by, things hit harder. Final words reached your ears. Faces shifted right before you. The scent of fear filled the air. Over time, feelings grew dull, never from being heartless, yet carrying every weight would break anyone. Stillness settled where emotion once ran. Here it is again, people depend on you, yet pull back in fear, holding distance like a shield. You stood near death, close enough to taste its weight, yet too still to claim you stepped there on purpose. Number 1. Plague Doctor's Assistant. Fancy gear? Not yours. Instead, you trailed behind someone in feathers and fright, lugging tools through sick rooms, moving bodies, scrubbing filth where disease clung thick. While they wore protection, you breathed the air everyone feared. Bodies moved by plague doctor helpers, garments fed to flames, injuries scrubbed clean, tasks done while knowledge lagged behind. Back then, science barely scratched the surface. Germs weren't known, so defenses relied on hope more than sense. Fear lived alongside duty, tied together by a quiet belief that things would end badly. The danger stood clear. Still, you stepped into it since the work needed doing. Most who did such tasks vanished without thanks, ignored while alive, gone too soon. Your mind adjusted by making tomorrow feel smaller. When just getting through matters most, thinking ahead loses meaning. Attention landed on what needed doing, not why it mattered. This is how people keep going when threats never stop. You held the line when everything teetered, using shaky ideas and slim chances. Not many would have stayed. Yet there it was, your choice to stand anyway. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.